Hi, dear friends. Namaskaram. This is Sudha Ragunathan here. I'm so happy to be sharing this space of Expressions Espresso with all of you. Last week, the maestro with the magic fingers, Ustad Zakir Hussain, had left us kind of in a trance with his narratives, with his experience of the journey of music with so many legends. And he really walked us the nostalgia lane. I thank the Almighty for leaving this world, for giving this world, for having blessed the world with such wonderful, talented musicians who have scaled great heights, yet remain so grounded, who impart their art and knowledge with so much passion. Thank you, Zakir Bhai. It was such an amazing evening, and I still continue to receive mails and messages on how much each one enjoyed listening to you, apart from all the posts that are coming in on the social media handles. EE Season 2 on episode 8 has yet another international celebrity, one of the most celebrated daughters of India. She has made all her fellow Indians and her country proud, very proud, by featuring in almost every list that has the influential people globally. During her stellar leadership, her company grew a net revenue of more than 80%, and the total shareholder return was 162%, a whopping achievement indeed. She has been the beacon for many women by bringing in gender inclusivity and noteworthy reforms that embrace women empowerment into the culture of the organization. Her innumerable interviews across all global platforms serve as an inspiration for scores of women, and she continues working for the cause of women upliftment in the corporate world. She has earned the affection and respect of all her male colleagues and men of standing in the large corporate world as a super achiever who wielded the baton in managing a Fortune 50 company that has operations in over 180 countries. No mean achievement that. A Padma Bhushan awardee and named an outstanding American by choice by the US State Department. This super achiever has her portrait inducted into the Smithsonian National Portrait Gallery. Raised by a mother who dreamt big for her children, our guest for today is a remarkable woman with an incredibly inspiring personal and professional story. So what else, apart from work, and more work, keeps her happy? Music, Western music, the New York Yankees baseball games, ballroom dancing. And then I asked her, tell me 3 other things that are on your priority list. She said, reading. I said, okay. Number 2, reading. Number 3, again, reading. That's how much she reads. This evening, it is my privilege and honor to welcome Indra Nooyi, former chairman and CEO, PepsiCo, to our show, Expressions Espresso. It's morning for Indra Nooyi. She's in the US, in Connecticut. Namaskaram.
Namaskaram, Sudha. How are you?
Extremely well, and it's such a privilege and so much joy bubbling in my heart to see you across.
Very nice to talk to you too. You're such an icon.
Indra, I'm going to give you a bouquet of a few songs that you love because, you know, when we have a guest, we usually give them a shalve or poti udava or give them a floral bouquet.
Oh.
But since I can't do that right now, here is the bouquet for you. கலியுக வரதன் கலியுக வரதன் கண் கண்ட தெய்வமாய் கலியுக வரதன் கண் கண்ட தெய்வமாய் காட்சியளிப்பது பழனியிலே கலியுக வரத கண்ட தெய்வமாய் காட்சியளிப்பது பழனியிலே கருத்த குழலொடு நிறத்த மயிலிறகிருக்கி அமைத்ததிரத்திலே கானமயிலாடும் ஓன குயில் பாடும் இல்லததியோடும் வனத்திலே புறல் முதல் எழிலிசை குழைய வரும் இசையின் குழலோடு விழிகில கரத்திலே கதிருமதியுமென நயன விழிகளிட நளினமான சலத்திலே காளிங்கன் சிரத்திலே காளிங்கன் சிரத்திலே கதித்த பதத்திலே என் மனத்தை கனவு நனவினோடு பிறவி பிறவி தோறும் கதி தோறுவது வரம் தருக வரம் கருணை வாழ்வடியும் முகம் நினைந்து நினைந்து உள்ளம் பரவசமிகவாகுதே பிரமனும் ஆந்திரனும் மனதில் பொறாமை கொள்ள பிரமனும் ஆந்திரனும் மனதில் பொறாமை கொள்ள பிரமனும் ஆந்திரனும் மனதில் பொறாமை கொள்ள உரலில் கட்டி வாய்ப்பொத்தி உரலில் கட்டி வாய்ப்பொத்தி கெஞ்ச வைத்தாய் உரலில் கட்டி வாய்ப்பொத்தி கெஞ்ச வைத்தாய் கண்ணனை உரலில் கட்டி வாய்ப்பொத்தி பிரம்மம் ఒకటే பரபிரம்மம் ఒకటి பரபிரம்மம் ఒకటి தந்தனானாகி தந்தனானா புரி தந்தனானா பல தந்தனானா பல தந்தனானா பல தந்தனானா பிரம்மம் ఒకటే பரபிரம்மம் ఒకటే பர பிரம்மம் ఒకటే பரபிரம்மம் ఒకటే தந்தனானாகி தந்தனானா புரி தந்தனானா பல தந்தனானா பல தந்தனானா பல தந்தனானா பல தந்தனானா பல தந்தனானா. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, good.
At last. So
At
that's
last.
that's a great sign, Indra, that we don't give up easily.
That's very true. But your music was wonderful, Sudha. Thank you so much for those few songs.
A little bouquet of the songs that I presumed you liked.
Very much. And I tell you a little story about 8 or 10 years ago. I was listening to your CD about all the Murugan songs, and this Kali Yuga Varadhan sort of hit my imagination a lot, and I felt like Payani Muruga was calling me. So I actually went to Payani just based on your song. And I have to tell you, it made a profound impact on me.
Wow, wow. Well, music is supposed to do that to the soul that listens to it, but the way you say it, um, it makes my journey meaningful, makes it more fulfilling.
Thank you.
Thank you, Indra.
Thank
So
you.
can we get on to the questions?
Sure.
I'm so excited that I'm almost panting, like looking at you across. I don't believe that you're so many miles away across the ocean, and you're so close at almost
It's
handshaking
true.
distance.
Feels like we're just in the same room chatting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You were born in Chennai, Indra, and it is always a matter of pride to have you back here with us whenever you come here. And I think the last time I saw you, if I may recall, it was at the Music Academy Festival inaugural in 2018.
I think we may have run into each other 2019 at some engagement party for somebody.
Yes, yes, yes. Oh, yes, yes. Very briefly, as you say.
Yeah, very briefly.
So tell us about your early days in Chennai, what you remember about your school, about home, about college, uh, about the classical music environment that you had at home.
Yeah. I was a very typical, as you put it, Tambram growing up in Chennai. Same house, same location, same school for the entire time that I was a child growing up, all the way from preschool to 11th grade.
Which was that?
We lived in, beg your pardon?
Which was that?
Holy Angels Convent. So we lived in G.N. Chetty Road, very close to Vani Mahal. And Vani Mahal those days was a very iconic sabha. And the house was a big house built by my grandfather. And it was a collection point for all the cousins. We came from a very big family. So all the cousins came there every summer. And if you ask all our cousins for the one memory they have from their childhood, they will say collecting in G.N. Chetty Road. So the home was a collection point. My mom was a fantastic stay-at-home mother, brilliant lady, but chose to stay home because those days there were no opportunities for people to work outside the house. She celebrated every festival, made great fresh food, was a wonderful mother. And my dad was like the most supportive dad. My grandfather, paternal grandfather, grandmother lived with us. So it's a very traditional Tamilian household, which basically said, as long as you study, as long as you listen to the older people, you're safe. Otherwise, you're in trouble. And so, as long as you got good grades, behaved yourself, and listened to the elder people and did everything they said, everything was okay. And, in our home, we were full of musicians. So, everybody was doing Carnatic music or dance. Aruna Saram is my cousin. And,
Yes.
Aruna and her mother, they would all come and they would all be singing. So, we grew up in that singing culture. My sister is a fantastic singer. I have other cousins who are all singers. So the house was like, as somebody would say, "Tea kade atamandadu," because music would be playing all the time, Carnatic music. That was all that was allowed. And so, we grew up with listening to M.S. Subbalakshmi and MLV and D.K. Patamal, the greats. All their songs, Amma would sing constantly. So it was a joy to grow up in that sort of a neighborhood. And Vani Mahala, Ratri Kacheri eல்லாம் free. So after 9 o'clock, we'd go for the 9 o'clock kacheri to Vani Mahal because the kids were only allowed to go to free concerts. So we went to the 9 o'clock concert and watched a lot of concerts and in the Tyagaraja play. I mean, we had in retrospect, it was a very normal childhood, but was a wonderful childhood filled with discipline, joy, togetherness, constancy. And I think the single biggest thing that benefited me in my childhood, my family, my father, my grandfather believed that the women should dream as much as the men, should be allowed to have as much of an opportunity as the men. And they never stopped us from doing whatever we wanted within the framework. They literally, the men have to get rid of their preconceived notions and say, as long as the women want to be anything they want to be, let's give them the opportunity to do whatever they want to, because nobody should be born a prisoner or a slave. They should be allowed to fly. That's what my grandfather and my father and my mother believed. And so all us girls were never held back. We were always threatened to be married off at 18, but we were never held back.
That's, I mean, இப்ப கேட்கறதுக்கு கூட, I can imagine all that happened in your life when you lived in Chennai. And but then when did this moving out of Chennai happen?
So the first moving out of Chennai was when I went to IIM Calcutta. My sister Chandrika went to IIM Ahmedabad, and she told me, don't come near Ahmedabad, I'd like a break from you. So I went to Calcutta, and that was the first time either of us moved out of the house. That was a big change. But interestingly, Calcutta la Munjitu, I came back to Madras to work. So the pull of hope was tremendous. But then, you know, the dream of the United States, what it can offer, the innovation, the growth, the incredible vibrancy of this country. I applied to school here for a master's program at Yale. I got in. That was in 78, and the rest is history. Eppadi vittan theriyala. I don't know how my parents allowed me to go. They had told all our friends here to sort of watch out for me. But for some reason, must have been luck or jadagatta, they must have said, na porenu too, as my mother would say. But I think some combination, they allowed me to go. They came to the airport in Bombay and sent me off. That was a big thing. And so I came to the States in 78.
I too believe in luck and destiny, because I wanted to become a gynecologist and see where I am today.
Oh, you're like the gynecologist. You give everybody a lot of hope.
So you were with Pepsico for 12 years as CEO, perhaps the longest tenure in the space of the CEO ambit. And we have heard you say CEOs should run a company for the duration of the company and not the duration of the CEO. That's a very profound thought, Indra, that reflects your vision and the performance for purpose of which you have been the architect. I think, ask you about why this thought process came about. How did this generate in your mind?
So it's very easy to run a company once you decide your duration is going to be 5 years or 6 years. You can just go in as a CEO and say, I'm going to run this company for 6 years. And in 6 years, you can deliver fantastic returns, cut the investments, cut the costs, somehow ride it out for 6 years. But if you really believe this company goes on for decades, and you're really managing the company or leading the company for the next generation, you have a very different perspective. So you're thinking constantly about what is it about the future that could impact the performance of the company, and how should you re-engineer it for the future? So you're constantly future-proofing the company. So, since I came from a strategy background, my immediate inclination was to figure out what are the future trends that could impact the company negatively, and therefore, how do we change the company to future-proof it? And so performance with purpose was born out of that, saying our singular purpose is to create a company that will last for decades. And I would look back and say, I was successful because my successor is successful. Because that's how you should judge your success, that even after you left, the company was in great shape. There was great talent, the business model worked, the products worked, which is what's happening now. And so to me, I decided that's the way I want to be known. So I was more interested in my legacy than I was about my immediate performance, because I felt for years after you leave, people will be talking about you. How do you want them to talk about you? So that there's a great speech by Martin Luther King. He gave it in 1967 at the Barat Junior High School in Philadelphia. It's only one page. It's a speech I want everybody to read. The title of that speech is, What's Your Life's Blueprint? I read that speech, once or twice a week. It's only 6 paragraphs, the shortest speech he's ever given, perhaps the most brilliant speech I've ever read. It talks about how you have to aim for doing everything you're doing very, very well. Aim to be the best you can be at what you're doing. So that speech impacted me profoundly. And I wanted to give this company everything I had, because that was my life's blueprint.
You've inspired me to start reading that speech. I will do that.
It's a very quick read.
Also, you spoke about his legacy, Leah. So, எங்க பரம்பரையில, அதாவது கர்நாடக இசை.
Mm.
My guru was MLV. MLV's
Uh-huh.
guru was GNB. So the
Uh-huh.
GNB parampara, how it goes
Yes.
down. After
Uh-huh.
me, my disciples.
Yeah.
So it's like ஒரு ஆலமரம் மாதிரி. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Sow the seed, and then it grows a sapling, and then a big tree, and then it just grows and grows with so many branches. So
Right.
I could see the similarity between what you said and what has been happening in my life. The baton passed from GNB to MLVMA to a lot of other disciples, which included me too. So
That's exactly right. And interestingly, since I left PepsiCo, I would say no, in the last 6 years, I have produced for global industry about 9 CEOs who came out of the PepsiCo Academy under my CEOship. So
wow.
That's a big legacy, because you say you cultivated people, you developed them, you mentored them, and they became CEOs of their own way. I would have loved to have kept them all in PepsiCo, but you can't, because they have big opportunities. So I take great pride in watching them thrive and flourish, because it's like my children all going on to bigger and greater things. That's what gives you pride.
A true guru always feels that way, the happiness.
True, just like you're talking about your disciples. Yeah.
So Walmart CEO Dong Macmillan referred to you as a visionary, a competitive, tough-minded, and caring CEO. Caring somehow, how does it fit in with the other 3 descriptions of a business leader? Well, I think you made that happen because you believe that a leader has to rule the company not only with the head and hands, but with the heart as well. Wow. What a striking difference in the thought process. Tell me about that.
All the employees that came to work at PepsiCo, my belief was that they're all mothers, fathers, uncles, aunts, cousins, neighbors, members of a community first before they come to PepsiCo. So when they walk in the door, they should bring their whole self to work. They shouldn't leave themselves at the door, come in and pretend to be somebody else, because that's what we expect. Then they pick themselves up and they leave. So my belief was always, you have to look at each person for the complete person that they are. If they have issues at home, they're going to carry it through to the office. It's not going to go away. So if you see somebody struggling with something, talk to them. See how you can help them. I mean, I've been in meetings where I'll be looking around the room, 30, 40 people. I'll see one person who would speak a lot during a meeting, all of a sudden sitting in the back, not asking any questions and looking down. I'd stop the meeting, take a 10-minute break, pull that person into my room and say, what's going on? They'll tell me everything that's going on, something, not very pleasant happened in their life. But the fact that they could unload on me, and the fact that the CEO cares so much about them, in return, made them feel stronger about the company, and the bonds to the company were very, very strong. So my only point was, if you treat every person as a whole person, their bonds to the company would be much stronger. So I made it a priority of mine to embrace not just the employee, but embrace the system that they were part of, their spouse, their children, their parents. I was the first CEO who wrote letters to parents, thanking them for their wonderful kid and the gift of that kid to PepsiCo. I wrote to about 400 of my executives' parents. So, some people thought, you're a CEO, letter, but it did better things for the company than anything else I've done. So I have no regrets with anything I've done. I think it created bonds of affection between the employees and me that was fantastic. I didn't do it for them. I did it because I felt that's the only way you should run a company.
Were you also invited for their weddings and birthday parties and stuff?
We had a good time.
While recruiting for very senior positions in the corporate offices, do the job descriptions change according to the gender of the ones who are chosen? Or is there a change in the expectation from the organization depending on the gender of the ones that were selected? It's a very difficult question in the sense, because I want to tell you about what happens in our field.
Mm-hmm.
It's a special share. But then, when they hear a woman sing, their mind works differently, their appreciation works differently. And when they hear a male singer, they say, wow, என்னமா தோடி பாடினா எவ்வளவு கம்பீரம் எவ்வளவு உழைப்பு. So why can't it be said of the female artist?
I tell you, I'll be honest with you. Every time I come to Chennai for the music season, I only go to the female music artists because I think they're fantastic. They're truly fantastic. Truly, truly. So I might have gone to one male artist, but I think the female artists rock. So let me just mention that to
On
you.
behalf of all of them.
Now let me talk about gender differences. In PepsiCo, we didn't. We just had job descriptions. And if somebody had young children, we worked with them to see how can we help you do the job and the promotion that you've gotten, along with keeping your family going. So we had on-site, near-site childcare facilities. We had flexible work hours. We provided a lot of benefits to our employees because at the end of the day, we needed the best and the brightest to keep growing the company. We should not differentiate based on ethnicity, gender, lifestyle, anything. All that we wanted was the best and the brightest. The second thing is that we need children to be born because they are our future consumers. So from our perspective, we want the population to grow. We want 2.1 children per family, which is the replacement rate in the United States. So in every country, we approached it that way. There was no discrimination based on gender. Now, were there examples of bias where somebody treated women badly or something like that? Yes, but when we heard about it, we were very, very swift to enact actions. We didn't tolerate bad behavior. So PepsiCo was one of those extraordinary companies which really made everybody feel very welcome and wanted. And even though I was the first woman on the executive floor, I think that culture existed in PepsiCo long before me.
I'm so happy to hear that, really. This next question perhaps is more general and applies to all companies. There are organizations here and the world over that do not look too kindly on women returning from maternity leave or ones who have to manage demanding children at home as well. But I think you adopted very special ways to tackle this. You at times got your children to your workplace and believe that if you can establish a niche for yourself, that you are competent, you in a way make yourself indispensable to the organization. Right? You made that work for you.
Well, I had a lot of help, so that I have to really tell you, 4 things worked for me. Clearly, as you said, in the workplace, I was valued. So people knew that if Indra worked on something, it'll get done. So they respected me for that. And after 5 in the evening, if my kids came and played in the executive floors, nobody cared. They went to everybody's offices and chatted with people. That was allowed. But leaving that aside, I had 3 other things that helped a lot. One is a very supportive spouse. Raj also traveled. He had his own career, but we coordinated calendars incredibly well. And he was always there when I needed him, always. And he helped with the housework, he helped with the childcare, he helped with everything. So it was a very equal marriage that way. I could not have done it without him. My father had passed away before I had my first child. And so my mother basically put a hold on her life completely and gave herself unselfishly to us. She was with us all the time. We had help at home, but it's not the same as having a family member at home.
Truly.
Amma did everything for us, and so I am deeply grateful to her. But I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about my in-laws. My in-laws, very, very unusual. They're from South Canada, and those in-laws were fantastic. They kept telling me, if you need help, we'll be there to help you. My mother-in-law, father-in-law, my aunts-in-law, all of them came to help. And they were very proud that I was doing well. And if I came home tired, I never had to do the work because they'll say, you go rest, we'll do it. And they'll dish up the most delicious food for you to eat. So I had this incredible luck that the trifecta of the husband, my mother, and my in-laws all helped me propel my career forward. Without that, I could not have balanced the job, which was very stressful from day one when I started in consulting to PepsiCo. I couldn't have done it and managed the kids. And so I owe my career to all of them. So I'm deeply grateful to them.
Oh, another similarity here. My husband Raghu, my mother-in-law, my mother, the try.
Yeah. I mean, look, you have to cope with all of those things because sometimes when you just want to be by yourself, Amma says, come talk to me. But you should. You have to decide how best to manage all of this because you can't be too selfish when you're calling on so many people to come and help you. So it's a question of give and take and learning to live in that whole ecosystem.
Yeah,
Made me a better person.
I have to be grateful to all of them. Because I know the audience is waiting to hear, lap up every single word that you're saying. So we've heard you say that when bias happens at the workplace, it strips away your confidence. And when it attacks your confidence, it in turn attacks your competence. You already answered partially. Many women in our nation, in the corporate sector, have and are still facing this in their daily struggle for survival and in their dreams to get to the top. So how would you motivate these women and make them give the best deal?
It's an interesting question and a tough question because bias exists, unfortunately, in many, many workplaces even today. So really, how do we address this issue of bias in the workplace that is directed mostly to women? Okay, that's the question that we should answer. I think there are several things that we can do. Our experience is that bias training in the workplace is not very successful because people go through the training as if, oh my God, why do I have to do it? So it actually turns them off. So rather than bias training, few things have to happen. You have to take a few men and perhaps senior women who really believe that this has to be nipped in the bud and make them visible ambassadors to go around spotting and eliminating bias. If those people who believe that bias should not exist remain quiet, it's a crime against women. So the first is pick those people who truly believe that things have to change and fix it. My light went out. Second, women have to help women. I think when we notice that there's bias in the workplace, we have to go together to the right people and say, hey, we feel discriminated against. Can you stop it? We have to do that. It's impossible. The third thing is numbers help. The more women we have in the workplace, the lesser the chance of having bias, because if you start discriminating against half the workforce, the work is not going to get done. And so I think it's very important that women, it's like the early movements where the women fought for rights. I think women have to stick it out and somehow move forward together. They strengthen the numbers. So don't give up when there's bias, stick it out. I'll tell you one thing, Sudha. In many ways, I think I had it easier than the women today. And I'll tell you why. When I came into the workplace, I was one of 5 or 6 women in every class that was graduating from business schools. And so when you went to a meeting, you might have been the only woman and 50 men. And you didn't care. They didn't care about you. They saw you as a novelty. And, I was just there doing the job. I didn't care about anything else except just doing the job. Today, and I was not viewed as competition. Very important. Today, there are many more women in the workforce, and they're really vying for the senior jobs. And so they're viewed as competition. And so what happens? All the sharp elbows come out. The bias comes out a lot more. And social media does not help. People post nasty things on social media.
Yes.
And that creates a terrible doom loop. So I think in many ways, the women today have it much more difficult than I did when I was growing up. So I think we have to help the women today who at last accomplished to get the numbers. Okay. Remember, when I was going to IMCAL, there was only room for 10 or 15 students. So 5 or 6 in one year, 5 or 6 in the other year. So the number of women were capped by the number of dorm rooms. I don't understand that. Why can't they expand the dorms? They've expanded it. But, those days it was, let us take baby steps to see if women should be allowed at all. Today, women are getting the top grades. They are go-getters. They want economic freedom. They want financial freedom. They should have economic and financial freedom. They should. Women should be able to stand on their own 2 feet. Okay, I know people may not like me for saying this, but no woman should be a prisoner to somebody else. No woman should be a prisoner. They should be a person in their own right. To do that, you've got to fight it out in the workplace. You've got to show your worth and move ahead. That's my hope for women, really my hope for women.
Beautifully worded, Indra. Really touching that you think of women as people who have to really dream and just go forward. But then I also feel
Absolutely.
that it is a tough walk for them because of the stress, because of the anxiety, because of the multitasking that they do. And of course, all of this uh, that's happening in the corporate sector everywhere as well. I'm just coming to
Yeah.
that question. It's a little bit sensitive, yet I feel you would be the best person to answer that. Sexual harassment of women at work exists everywhere.
Yeah.
While many processes and policies have been designed in the corporate sector, in this field of art, which is not so organized, I think we do have some issues that do go unnoticed and remain unaddressed. This is because the affected do not speak about it, simply for the
Hmm.
sake of fear of their career progression. How can artists embolden themselves to bring up the issue in fora and seek justice so that the perpetrators are brought to task? There is a lot of
So,
inhibition seen
yeah.
here, even to raise a complaint. That space of
Yeah.
a
I've been
secure.
reading about some of these, and it's been very painful because you expected it. I expected it in corporate environments and businesses. I never thought it existed in the arts until I started reading about it. So it's a very sad thing to read. So I think it might be worth borrowing a page out of the corporate world. And let me be more specific. You know, in companies like ours, we have a whistleblower line, speak up line,
Mhm.
where if somebody notices a problem or is going through harassment, they can call anonymously and report it. And then we investigate it. We have a whole compliance group that investigates it. Most importantly, sexual harassment, anything to do with treatment of women badly, we put on top of the list because that's a disease that can permeate very rapidly if we don't address it right away. And so we address it really fast and really do an investigation. And if we find any bad behavior, we take action right away. So I
Mhm.
think you might want to think about the Association of Artists or whatever having a speak up line where you can call and report these issues anonymously. I think the time has come to take some action. And I think what goes along with that is, an education of the men who do it. Why do they engage in sexual harassment? Why do they engage in any harassment? Why do they think it's okay to harass women? I think there's got to be a profound education of men who actually commit these acts because you wouldn't want that on your daughter or your niece or your wife. So why do you do it to other people? But I think having an anonymous line like we do in companies may be the answer.
Well, anonymous, you said anonymous, yes. But
Yeah.
here the ICC requests for an official complaint. And we believe that anything anonymous, especially on social media,
Hmm.
is not legitimate enough to take up as a case.
It
So,
cannot be on social media. It should be to an official body that's legal,
that,
protected. We don't do it on social media. We call a speak up number. Outside PepsiCo, there's an organization that deals with this. And it's interesting on any issue. If the speak up call numbers go down, I get more worried because I'd rather people called and we investigated and said there's not an issue. Okay, or this is a small issue, let's address it, rather than silence people. I think it's better not to silence people, So every 3 or 4 months, we do a speak up training. We tell people, remember there's a speak up call, the line. You can call them if you have any issues. So we're constantly reminding people that that facility exists. So nobody feels threatened, harassed, put down when they come to work. Very important.
I think you've given us a good tip, so we'll take that. You spoke about your spouse being so supportive, such support you got from your mother and in-laws as well. As women, I think we do make compromises handling our own egos, our preferences, putting ourselves first. Do you feel that? Have you felt that?
You know, look, when you want to keep a marriage going, when you want to be a mother, you want to be a daughter, daughter-in-law, an executive, it's multiple priorities you have to handle. At some point, you've got to say to yourself, where are you willing to just zip it up, as they would say, just not talk about it? And I think my experience, and I've talked to a lot of the women who have reached senior positions, their accolades are rarely celebrated the way they would like it to be celebrated. So in my case, it's the same way. And I just go, I'll tell you something. Forget my kids. The fact that my husband shows up for all my events, I think that's big enough. Wherever he is in the world, he will drop everything and come with me to the event. So I think that's, the fact that he's there just makes me feel great, as I would for him. But if they don't talk about it, if my family doesn't call me and congratulate me, which, very few do, I don't care. Ulla, it hurts a little bit, but you know what? Personally, I've decided that it's irrelevant. And so I celebrate inside myself, but I'm no longer looking for, celebration or confirmation from anybody close to me other than just my my husband, not even my kids, just my husband. And he's not the kind that will beat the drums, but the fact that he shows up, I think is a tremendous support system. Would I have liked it to have been a little bit more than that? Yeah, but it doesn't happen. Even the Padma Bhushan, nobody called to congratulate me, even from my family. So I just let it go. Who cares? Kashtam.
கஷ்டம் மனசு கஷ்டமா இருக்கு இல்லையா
But you know what? They must be proud. But they must be proud.
Say something more. இங்கேயும் ஒரு similarity இருக்கு. Raghu very proud of me, but வாயை விட்டு சொல்றதுக்கு யோசிப்பார் 2 தடவை.
I think they think it's crazy to keep on complimenting the wife. They're proud of the wife. They know that. And, sometimes you go, hey, give me some compliments, Then you go, why? Why do we expect these things? Okay. You talk to a third party, they'll say, your husband's so proud of you. So otherwise, just stay quiet.
But then Raghu also says that keeps you grounded.
That's exactly what Raj says too. Exactly what Raj says too. Sometimes I don't want to be grounded. I want to fly.
True. So when you've had a long and tiring day, okay, a lot of decision making, strategizing, when you come home, how do you unwind yourself? You read, I know, probably.
I read a lot.
And you meditate?
No.
Music?
I listen to a lot of music. Amma Arkate should be having Carnatic music going on all the time. So it's being listened to in the whole house. But, I listen, but I read a lot. But I usually have lots of office work still because I'm involved in so many things. So I have work to do on all of that stuff. So the difference is that in Pepsico, I came home from work and I could unwind a few minutes. All the rest of the stuff I do carries through the whole day. And so I'm busy all the time. I have this curiosity. If I find something interesting, I'll keep digging till I understand the universe of the knowledge around it. Universe is defined by me. But so curiosity takes up a lot of my time. Recently, I've gotten into, in the night, I don't sleep much, binge watching. So sometimes I'll find like this Indian matchmaking show. I watched the whole thing in one night. I just sat up and watched it.
How many hours?
It was about 9 hours. I watched the whole thing, okay, one after the other, because it's like, tunga mudila, might as well finish watching it. And even if you go to sleep, you're thinking about what the next episode is, so might as well see it. So I'll pick up a show that interests me a lot and I might just binge watch it and be done with it. And so, I do things like that. So I watch baseball, New York Yankees baseball a lot. I play tennis. I go for my physical therapy lessons. So, I just keep myself busy.
That keeps your mind fresh, gets your mind fresh for the next day, right?
Yeah, it does.
Yes.
It does. I mean, it keeps my mind on an even keel. Let's put it that way.
So you're writing a book now. Uh, Tell us about it and what kind of a change in society do you think that book is going to bring about?
I don't know the answer to the second part of your question. Let me tell you the first part of the question. I tell you my hope. This is a book about integrating work and family. Clearly, it has a bit of my journey. I say a lot of my journey from the time I was growing up to now. But then it talks about what needs to change in society in order to enable young people, not just women, young people, to integrate work and family. How do you allow them to build families, have children, yet grow and thrive in their jobs? And so it's advocating for policy positions. It applies in the US, applies in India in different ways, but it applies. And there's been tremendous interest on the book. So far, the rights have been sold into many, many countries. So sometime in some early summer of next year, it should be out. And it's a bit, I've never written about my life. So this is the first time I'm writing about my journey and then interspersing the policy aspects with it. It's a fascinating journey. It's a fascinating reflection and policy options.
Wishing you all the best. And
Thank you, Sudha. I'll come back on your show and talk about it when the book is out.
Wishing that the book reaches a lot of women and makes a great change in their lives. Yeah. Now we come to the shorter section. I mean, the quick answer.
All right.
Very fast. Your favorite vacation spot?
Chennai, coming to Madras for the Kacheri season. That's my vacation spot.
What's the best advice you have been given?
I was told always, just focus on the job you're given and do it better than anybody else. And don't worry about your next job and the next job. Just focus on what you're doing very, very well. And so I'm on a motion sensor for my light. And so that's all I've done. I focused on doing the job I was doing exceedingly well.
And what's the worst advice you've been given?
Worst advice I was given was, do whatever you need to do. Don't let anybody stand in the way. If you don't like something, just walk away from it. I do the opposite. If I don't like something, I keep working it until it gets better. So for me, I'm not a quitter. Many other people are. I'm just not a quitter.
The time you laughed uncontrollably.
My husband shares with me some little videos. I don't know where he gets it from, but some of the videos he's been sharing with me the past few days, it is absolutely hilarious. So you sit there and just, you can't, the genius of those people who put out these videos just is fantastic. So I look at these and sometimes I laugh. When he shows it to me, then I laugh later on too, thinking about those videos.
You think about it and laugh, yeah.
Yes.
Do you agree that pets make better companions than humans?
I don't like pets because I don't have any animal pets. For me, my kids, hopefully one day grandkids, are all I care about. I know they want a dog, but I'm not used to growing up with a dog, so I don't have any pets.
My kids are my pets. How many do we both have? Same. I don't like pets too.
Separated at birth, Sudha.
I think at the end of the show, I'm going to ask you how many similarities do Indra and Sudha have?
Okay.
What would your friends say that they like the best in you, the quality?
Yeah, the fact that I care about them as a person. Whatever I'm doing, I'll drop it if somebody has a problem and they need my help. Or if they have a great time and they want a reaffirmation of their wonders, I'm there to tell them how great they are and give them added boost. So they know that I'm there for them always.
Is there something they don't like?
Yeah, they say you're too busy. I wish you weren't so busy. I wish you would just, as my kids would say, I wish you could just chill, mom. I don't know what chill means. That's the one thing I have to learn. எனக்கு தெரியாது.
சில்லுன்னு ஃப்ரிட்ஜ்லேருந்து எடுக்கிற ஒரு பெப்சி.
அது சொல்ல போறேன் next time அவள்கிட்ட.
What was the toughest feedback you received at work?
You know, in my early days, I'd be very honest in giving my feedback on issues. You know, as I rose in an organization, there was one CEO that I worked for some years ago, before I came to Pepsico, who called me in and said, look, I'm going to give you a piece of advice. The advice that you gave, or the input you gave, or the feedback you gave the group, you were very direct. You hurt them. You could have given the same feedback in a different way. And he taught me how to give feedback by conveying the same message, but in a way that was more impactful. I felt it was too many words, but on the other hand, you know, in 10 words, you can hate somebody. The same message given in 20 words will soften the blow, but still have the same impact of the feedback. That was a tough transition for me, but I was eternally grateful to that CEO for teaching me that skill.
What's the first thing that you notice about someone when you meet them for the first time?
They smile. To me, the smile is very important. I say two things. Do they give me eye contact, and do they have a smile that's from the heart as opposed to just a fake smile?
Can you name one person who's had tremendous impact on you in the grooming of you as a leader?
There have been several people along my life. All of them have been men, but from the time I was in school, many people have stepped up and said, I want to mentor this person. I didn't ask them, they just did it. So I have a group of about 8 or 10 people for whom I will always be grateful to, because they were instrumental in making me who I am today. So I owe them a huge debt of gratitude.
One beautiful gesture from your junior most employee.
Do you what? Oh, from my employees, beautiful gesture. You know, last week, I think, they spoke to the CEO of Godiva Chocolate.
Okay.
And they asked her about her mentors. And she named me first, and she said, the hardest thing about leaving PepsiCo was leaving Indra. Not the company, it was leaving Indra. And that was a beautiful gesture, because she said, not only was I leaving the institution, I was also leaving the person that made me feel such an integral part of the company. And so I think if your employees feel so strongly about you as they do the company, then you've really made an impact on them.
Yes, certainly. Your favorite Chennai food?
Which is not there anymore, is my drive-in experience and my drive-in dosas. One day I hope that Woodlands drive-in comes back. You know, that was such a big part of my childhood. At the point then, rumba sad.
It's a park now, I think, right?
Yeah, it's a park, yeah.
I doubt, yeah.
Yeah.
And your most treasured gift? Don't say it's from Raj.
My most treasured gift. My kids, you mean besides my kids? My most treasured gift. You know, I tell you, my most treasured gift is that my Amma is still here. You know, she's been such a big part of my life, and that Amma is still there, and she's still available for me all the time. The fact that I can talk to her. I mean, she still is Amma, tells me what to do, but that's okay. You know, the fact that she's around is a tremendous gift that God gave me.
Please give my love to her.
I will definitely do that. So
I'm going to look down to ask you a few questions that has come in from the audience. A quick 2 or 3. Soundarya Anand, ma'am, she calls you ma'am. What's the most important ethic or value for working women?
You know, I go back to what's your life's blueprint speech. It says, do the job you're given better than anybody else can do it. And if you focus on that, you'll be surprised how many doors open for you. Now, you can say they don't even give me the tools to do the job. That's a much different problem. But if you focus on the job you're doing very well, and not worry about the next job and the next job constantly. You'll be amazed what a difference it makes.
I'm sure she's going to be very happy with what you said because I think it's an easy one, like to concentrate on and focus on what you're doing. If all of us started doing that, I'm sure our professions or careers would start to get elevated. So,
But there's a skill required then. I always say if you're given a problem to resolve, before you start working on the problem, zoom out a bit, see how this thing you're working on is going to interact with the whole business or around it. So zoom out, zoom back in, and keep zooming out to higher and higher levels. So you're not just working on a problem, you're working on a solution that will enable a broader ecosystem to function. So that skill of zooming in and zooming out is a very important skill to learn.
Muruganandam Marimuthu wants to know what's the one advice that you can give us for kids who have just completed college and want to know, kind of confused, not knowing what to do or what direction to take?
Now it's troubling times because of COVID, so much is shut down. The world is going to change in profound ways. And I tell you, I feel quite sorry for the young people who are graduating today because they've gone through a couple of crises. They've gone through a shutdown, the likes of which we've never seen in the world in 100 years. The last one was the Spanish flu in 1918. So it's been 102 years since we had such a shutdown. And so I think that it's very difficult times. In some places, the youth, the enjoyment of graduation has been taken away. Yes. Others are uncertain about education. And I think the next 12 to 18 months could remain uncertain. What can they do? First, I would retool yourself for skills that are going to be needed for the future. Look carefully at what industries of the future will emerge because coming out of the pandemic are going to be a whole set of new industries. E-commerce is going to become bigger. Contactless stuff is going to become bigger. A lot of industries are going to emerge which never existed before the pandemic. Acquire the skills to be ready for those new industries. And remember one thing, the one luxury that companies are going to have is that they can now hire the best and the brightest because they don't need to hire average people. There's going to be an availability of a lot of people and they can pick and choose the best and the brightest. So if you're just an average performer, just know that it's not enough. Get ready to be known for something, fine-tune that skill. It's all about education. So that's education, 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 yes. All over again.
Yes. Amrita Raman wants to know what practices or routines does a woman have to undertake to get better and better at work?
Depends on the environment you're in. Look, there's a lot of entertainment and options coming at you these days. When we were growing up, it was one channel to many people. So we sat in one room, in the TV room and watched one movie, 20 people, neighborhood people, everybody came and you watched a movie. Today it is many to one. You sit in your room by yourself and you've got 200 channels on your computer or iPad or iPhone. So it's become more of a lonely world where you cocoon yourself, okay? Yes. What you cannot allow is for that to take up all your time. Don't let that take up all your time because if you spend all your time doing that, you're never going to be able to figure out how does the world operate? How do social interactions happen? So rethink your time allocation. Don't worry about telling people you're up to date on the TV shows or you're on social media all the time. All that's okay for, superficial attention, but it doesn't develop the core in you. Commit yourself to a purpose. Think about how you want to make a difference in the world and just go off and do that. Don't sit there saying, am I on Facebook? Do I have enough likes? And do I have enough followers? If you keep focusing on those superficial things, Sudha, I think it'll make you obsess about those things which are not that important.
But this younger gen, don't you think they are kind of wedded to these gadgets and social media handles? And I'm on this, I'm on that.
At some point, you're going to stop being wedded to those gadgets because, you don't have infinite time. If you're going to have a family, if you're going to be married, if you want a job, if you want to do social media, here's a choice. You can do a job and social media, two things. அது மட்டும் பண்ணு, வேற ஒண்ணும் வேண்டாம். Remain single all your life, no relationships, social media பண்ணிட்டே இரு and get a job. That's one kind of life. But if you want to have a holistic life, you have to define what holistic is. You have to prioritize. You have to give up some or do some one day, do some another day, but you can't do everything every day and say, I'm tired, தூங்கவே இல்லை. If you really ask them, ஏன் தூங்கலைன்னா, they were doing social media or watching something on the computer. I have no, I have no sympathy for that.
Yeah, I too wouldn't sympathize with that.
No.
Ashmi wants to know, what is the secret of Indra's success?
Everything I've talked about is that. I just think it's, commitment, hard work, curiosity.
இல்ல, அவ personality பத்தி சொல்றா. What
personality பத்தியா?
ஆமா. Of yours make you what you are now. What you are now. என்ன change கொண்டு வந்தீங்க உங்க personalityலன்னு கேக்குறேன்.
I think I talk less these days.
This has been such an enriching session, Indra. We're so proud of you, all of us. Me, your family, the people around the world watching you today. That I'm sure after listening to you today, so many women with great career aspirations will start to look at life with a different perspective. You have given us so much confidence and clarity. Thank you very much for being with us today. And I wait for the day you come to our own Chennai, Singara Chennai, and join us musicians once again during the Margari moments. I hope and pray that normalcy returns soon and that music is going to be back in the auditoriums where we have all those lovely interactions and the energy flowing through music. So goodbye, take care.
Thank you.
And be safe. Thank you so much.
Sudha. Good to see you. Thank you. Love you.
What a session, right? Despite the fact that she had audio glitches and I had the seat problem and there was lighting problem, I feel that what transpired in the last hour, in the last 60 minutes, was something that has opened a new window in our lives. At least, yes, to me. First of all, I'm going to start to read Martin Luther King's speech. I'm going to start to be more confident, more focused. I am already, but when you hear her, you are inspired. And, you get that key going. And the பொம்மையெல்லாம் இருக்கும். கீ கொடுத்தா அந்த பொம்மை வந்து டக்கு 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 டக்குன்னு தட்டும். அந்த மாதிரி அந்த கீ வந்து நம்ம எல்லாருக்கும் வந்து இன்னைக்கு கொடுத்துருக்கா. எவ்வளவு அழகா தமிழ் பேசுதா, ஒன்னும் மறக்கல தமிழ். It's so fulfilling, so touching to see someone from our own country leave such strong footprints in the soil of foreign land. When I carry my music to different parts of the world, it's so fulfilling, and we are able to place our country's culture, kind of make imprints in that land, whichever land that I travel into. It shows our country's greatness in culture and what it can produce. Another beautiful evening comes to end with the words of this powerful and talented achiever echoing in our ears. We look forward to her book, wish her great success. And dear people, keep your comments and feedback flowing. SMS. Remember that. Sanitizing, mask wearing, and social distancing. May the Almighty be with all of us and let the lockdown period slowly open up with us being cautious and precautious. Take care. Till next week, we come back with another wonderful guest. See you until the next.